All right, today we're going to zoom way in. I mean, past the skin, past the organs, all the way down to the very fabric of complex life itself. We're talking about tissues. These are the incredible, specialized teams of cells that make everything possible, from a giant sequoia tree to a sprinting cheetah. So let's dive in and figure out how these specialist teams work and, why you're not just one giant squishy cell.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Why aren't you? Why bother with trillions and trillions of tiny individual cells? Well, it all comes down to a problem of efficiency and the absolutely brilliant solution that evolution cooked up to solve it. You see, if you're a single-celled organism, like an amoeba, you're the ultimate jack of all trades. You have to do everything yourself. You're the hunter, the stomach, the lungs, the whole shebang, all packed into one microscopic body. But for complex organisms like us, that would just be total chaos. Instead, we have millions of cells that form these specialized teams. You've got muscle cells for moving, nerve cells for thinking, and blood cells to keep the whole operation supplied.
And this whole strategy has a name. It's called a division of labor. It's kind of like a super efficient factory, right? Where each worker has one very specific job. Well, in a multicellular organism, cells specialize. And because they only have to focus on that one particular job, they get incredibly good at it. And that right there is the key. When a whole bunch of these specialized cells group together to perform one common function, they form what we call a tissue. Think of it as the body's own specialist squad, designed for peak performance. This is the fundamental building block of all complex life. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Not all tissues are created equal. The entire blueprint for an organism is dictated by its lifestyle, and you really can't get a bigger difference in lifestyle than between a plant, which is literally rooted to the spot, and an animal, which is always on the move. Understanding this divide is the key to, everything that comes next. This huge contrast in lifestyles leads to completely different design principles. I mean, plants are stationary, right? So they need to conserve energy. They build themselves with supportive and often dead tissue. It's a trade-off. They sacrifice mobility for incredible resilience. Animals, on the other hand, we're always moving, so we need way more energy, and we're built from mostly living, active tissues. Even the way we grow is different. Plants grow from very specific points, while our growth is much more uniform. So let's start with the plants. You can think of them as these master architects, solving a series of really tough engineering challenges to thrive without ever taking a single step. First challenge up, the puzzle of growth. A plant doesn't just get bigger all over, like you're inflating a balloon. Nope, it has to grow upwards towards the light and downwards into the soil, but only from very specific targeted points. So how on earth does it manage that?
Well, the secret is something called meristematic tissue. This is basically the plant's growth engine. It's a collection of cells that are always dividing, and you only find them at the very tips of roots and stems. It's the reason you can mow your lawn and the grass just grows right back. Or you can prune a tree branch and it'll sprout new shoots from the tip. It's all thanks to this tissue.
Okay, so next challenge, how to stand tall. A plant has to be strong enough to fight gravity day in and day out, but it also has to be flexible enough to sway in the wind without just snapping in half. That is a really delicate balancing act.
Plants solve this problem using 3 types of simple tissue. First, you've got parenchyma, which is kind of the basic filler and food storage. Then there's parenchyma, which acts like a flexible skeleton, giving support but also allowing things to bend. And finally, you have sclerenchyma. This stuff is the hard armor. It's made of dead, super rigid cells that give a plant its toughness. If you've ever felt that gritty texture in a pear or, tried to crack open a coconut husk, that's sclerenchyma you're dealing with.
The last big challenge for plants is plumbing. I mean, how does a giant redwood tree get water from its roots all the way up to its leaves, hundreds of feet in the air? And then, how does it send all the food made in those leaves back down to feed the rest of the tree? It manages this with an amazing vascular system made of 2 complex tissues. Xylem is basically a set of tough, dead tubes that acts like a one-way street, transporting water and minerals up from the roots. Then you have phloem, which is a network of living cells that transports all that sugary food made in the leaves down and all around to every other part of the plant. It's a perfect 2-way highway.
Okay, time to switch gears. Let's jump over to the animal kingdom. And here, the blueprint, the entire design philosophy, is fundamentally different because it's all designed for one primary purpose: action. And at the heart of being an animal is movement, the ability to chase, to flee, to hunt, to explore. And all that,
every single movement comes down to the incredible, specialized ability of certain cells to contract and relax on command.
This, of course, is the job of muscle tissue, and it comes in three main flavors. You've got striated, or skeletal muscle. That's the voluntary kind you use to consciously lift a weight or take a step. Then there's smooth muscle, the involuntary workhorse that lines your internal organs, like your stomach and intestines. And finally, there's cardiac muscle, found only in the heart, working tirelessly, involuntarily, your entire life.
But of course, an animal body isn't just a big bag of muscles, right? It needs a framework, something to hold everything together, to support the organs, and connect all those moving parts.
And this brings us to the incredibly diverse world of connective tissue. Now, the key feature here, the thing that makes it all work, is that the cells are kind of scattered around inside a non-living substance called a matrix. And the nature of that matrix, whether it's a liquid, a gel, or a solid rock, is what determines what the tissue actually does.
And the variety here is just incredible. Just think about the range. It goes all the way from a liquid, like blood, to a solid, like bone. You've got flexible cartilage that makes your joints move smoothly, tough ligaments and tendons holding your skeleton together, and even body fat, that's adipose tissue, which stores energy. All of these are different forms of connective tissue.
So you can move, and you've got a solid structure. But how do you control it all? How does your brain tell your leg to kick a ball in just a fraction of a second? You need a high-speed communication network. You need wiring. And that is the job of nervous tissue. It's built from these highly specialized cells called neurons, which act exactly like the body's electrical wiring. They can receive a stimulus, like say you touch something hot, and they transmit an electrical signal at unbelievable speeds to the brain, which then zaps the signal right back to a muscle to pull your hand away, all before you've even consciously registered the pain.
So, as we start to wrap this up, it becomes pretty clear, right? Tissues are the secret ingredient. They're what allowed life to make that incredible leap from simple single-celled organisms to the staggering complexity of plants and animals we see all around us.
You know, there's a line from our source material that just says it all. The structural organization of organs reflects the different modes of life pursued by these two major groups of organisms. In other words, the way an organism lives is the architect of its own body. A stationary tree and a mobile tiger are built from fundamentally different tissues because they have to solve fundamentally different problems. It's the ultimate example of form following function.
So, we've seen that tissues are these amazing specialized teams: muscle for movement, nerves for communication, connective tissue for support. But it begs the question, right? What happens when all these different distinct teams join forces to work together on an even larger project? What do they build then? Well, that's the next level of this incredible story. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.